It's an honor to be here today. It feels a little bit like being home. I've seen so many good friends this morning, and this is also the room where we hold our graduation every 6 months, so it's great to be here. As Matt mentioned, I started Europe Bay Area 5 years ago. Like many a startup, I started alone in the kitchen and on a laptop that someday our students would learn to configure and repair. Like all startups, I started pitching. And my first pitch, just 3 hours into the job, was to Tipping Point. When they called me back to say they were in, I was thinking, I must be a pretty good salesman, and why does everyone tell me that fundraising is so hard? Little did I know that they knew about Europe from New York and wanted to bring the model to the Bay Area. Like any good investor, Tipping Point is always looking to find things that work and bring them to scale. With their support, with your support, Europe Bay Area has doubled its service capacity twice over the last 4 years. And in March of 2013, we'll open our Silicon Valley campus, once again with a leadership gift from Tipping Point. To date, Tipping Point has invested $1.5 million in our work. Why? Because I think Daniel, his staff, and the board see the same crisis we see. The U.S. is home to more than 6.7 million young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 who don't have a job, are not enrolled in post-secondary education, and have no clear path out of poverty. More than 70,000 of them live in the Bay Area alone. It's a crisis that threatens our community. It's also one that makes absolutely no sense. Because as we sit here today, there are more than 3.5 million jobs open in our country. Companies are struggling to find talent. They are struggling to find people who are both skilled and motivated. But don't take my word for it. A recent study found that almost 80% of CEOs are worried about the growing talent gap in the United States. We have certainly seen the demand at Year Up, as we've grown from 5 founding corporate partners to 37, including Google, Gap, Twitter, eBay, Yelp, and Zynga. At Year Up, we have a scalable solution that can strengthen our companies and strengthen our communities by giving thousands of young adults a path out of poverty. This isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. A true double bottom line. At Year Up, we provide a very real, very close, very clear opportunity for young adults to change their lives in just 1 year. For far too many people in our country, we set expectations low and are somehow surprised when they live down to them. At Year Up, we set expectations high and believe our students can live up to them with support, guidance, and care. We provide college-level technology courses mapped to the needs of our corporate clients, and business communications and professional skills training that focus on the soft skills, which are really some of the hardest skills to come by. We do it through a contract that takes all of the unwritten rules of corporate America and puts them down into one document. If you don't know the rules, how can you play the game? If you didn't grow up watching your dad put on a suit and tie every day, how would you know how to do that? Now, not everyone makes it through our program. About a quarter of our students will fire themselves during the first 6 months. But those who do make it earn, and I do mean earn, an internship in the beginning of a career with one of our corporate partners. They show up for work knowing not just how to debug a computer, but how to shake someone's hand and look them in the eye. They won't simply know how to test code. They will also have a track record of professional dress, timeliness, and an ability to give and receive feedback. I think about Sophia from Class 1, who was hired after his internship at Wells Fargo. He's been there now for 3.5 years as a PC LAN analyst, and he recently bought his first house in Daly City, where he moved in his mother, stepfather, brother, and sister. And I wish you could have seen his face when he told me that. Or Jay, when we met him, he was hoping to be a checker at Safeway. Today, he's an IT support technician at Facebook, literally rubbing elbows with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg. He's got the pictures to prove it. Or Tazo, who was living in his car 4 years ago and now works at LinkedIn, making more than $60,000 a year. Or Dominique, an employee at Salesforce who is busy applying to Stanford and Berkeley after being told in high school that college just wasn't for her. These young adults are not the exceptions. They are the norm. Within 4 months of graduating, 87% of our graduates are working, earning on average $34,000 a year or in college full-time. It's not a miracle, it's a year. And it's what happens when you combine talent with opportunity. You see greatness and you see hunger. I'll never forget when Dan Springer, the CEO of a company called Responsus, called to invite some Europe students to a recruiting fair they were hosting for the best colleges in the state. He thought it would be good for our students to get some experience and maybe to see what they were working toward. When Dan called my cell phone late that night, I was nervous that something had gone terribly wrong. I called him back, expecting the worst. Instead, he said, "Jay, we were recruiting and interviewing for 4 positions today. We're offering 1 to someone from Stanford, 1 to someone from SC, and we want the other 2 to go to Europe students." It was a moment I will never forget. People will often ask me why I do this work, and it's certainly because of stories like these. It's also personal for me. My story is not so different than the students I have the privilege to work with. My grandmother was an extremely proud woman, and I know she wouldn't describe it this way. But I also know our family survived because of public assistance. I saw the checks that came from the Summerville Housing Authority on the 1st of every month. I grew up with her and my mother, and I never wanted for anything because they loved me unconditionally and they believed in me unconditionally. They were determined that I would have access to a bigger world. My mother worked incredibly hard to make sure I went to the right elementary school so I could have more opportunities than those around us. I paid them back by working equally hard. And when we couldn't afford it anymore, I earned scholarships to elementary school, high school, and college. But here's where I had the problem. I started to fall in love with the idea that I was a self-made man. I liked the way it fit. I earned a scholarship at Stanford. It was all mine. But it's a lie. No one is self-made. And Europe students reminded me of that. There is at least one person in all of our lives that believed we could do more than we could have ever imagined. And I ask you to hold them in your mind right now. They had high expectations for us. They held us to high standards. And they were there to support us when we inevitably struggled to meet them. My mom believed in me in ways I'll never fully understand. And my wife and I try to do the same for our 3 kids. Founding Europe Bay Area has been the culmination of my entire career. I started at Oracle, became the assistant treasurer for the city and county of San Francisco. I've mentored, coached, taught at the college level. But for the first time in my life, I am using every part of me, every experience in my job. I'm doing what I feel like I was put on earth to do. I don't take that lightly because I know not many people get to say that. It's an incredible privilege. I think about Sophia, Jay, Tazo, and Dominique, where they would be if they hadn't gotten their year up. My hope is that they'd all be trying to work and do good things, but chances are they wouldn't be doing what they were meant to do. And that not only hurts them, it hurts all of us. If you don't have a sense of the possibility or hope, if you don't have the sense that there's something more out there for you, why would you work hard at something? Why would you believe in something? Why would you take the time to help others? Our students don't know you, but they've truly benefited from your generosity. You've opened doors for them they couldn't open for themselves, not without help. What they've done and created with these opportunities is theirs. They own it, but you make it possible. Thank you very much for investing so much in all of our young adults and strengthening the fabric of the American workplace and our communities.